But the law isn't wrong just because you feel deep down that it is.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Just because you don't agree with the law doesn't mean that it should get overturned.
If you feel like you have nothing else to lose because the country in which you were born is either dangerous or present no opportunities for upward mobility, I could see why they would make that choice to break the law.
I see that too. And that's where I'm getting at, because I've been hearing this a lot.
You know, it's kind of weird where life takes you. 6 years ago, I was chanting "abolish ICE" on the steps of the Supreme Court during their DACA decision. And as my viewpoints and worldview shifted in the last few years, I still, for the longest time, had a residual hesitation to acknowledge that I might have been wrong about ICE. But time won out my resistance, and my views have shifted from seeing them as an evil to a necessary evil to simply necessary. And since this is something I've gone through myself, I suspect many of you have conflicting thoughts about immigration enforcement. Of course,
Honestly, the more I learn about it, the more my thoughts conflict, and that's just the reality. Because the more information you have, you're getting information from every single source, and I have mixed feelings about this. So I do want to know what he has to say about the ICE raids, and I'm gonna give my opinion a little later once I hear more.
many of you don't. There's people on either ends of the spectrum, right? People who want every illegal immigrant deported to people, crazy people, who want no enforcement at all. But I'm reaching out to a lot of you stuck somewhere in between. Those who maybe say only deport those who commit violent crimes, or don't deport the ones who've been here for decades, or brought here as children, which, as to that last point, still makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm here to tell you the reasons why I felt conflicted for the longest time, how I've come to think about it now, and finish off with two important things for you to bear in mind as you work through this issue for yourself. To start, as my worldview shifted, what really sold to me the necessity for enforcement wasn't that fact that in these last few years, a lot of violent criminals were coming in to our communities. Of course, that matters a lot. And despite the insistence of these immigrant advocacy groups, it's not scaremongering. People who are killed, these are real people, and its consequences are borne not by these advocates, but by the families to whom this has happened. But it's not that. What really sold it for me was I started caring more about the principle of the matter. Generally speaking, I notice it's something that happens a lot with people as they turn 30. A lot of us lose some of our youthful, permissive, indulgent, laissez-faire attitude towards the misconduct of others, and in its stead, we grow increasing intolerance of people who do not conform their conduct to law or social custom. And in this specific case, here is the principle of the matter. The law. You know, sometimes we like to say the law is wrong, and if the law is wrong, you are under no moral obligation to follow it. And in some instances of our history, I would tend to agree. But the law isn't wrong just because you feel deep down that it is.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Just because you don't agree with the law doesn't mean that it should get overturned. That's a fact. I 100% agree with that. When it comes to deportation of illegal immigrants, people who have illegally crossed the border, at the end of the day, what can you do? If something's illegal, you have to enforce the law. I 100% agree. When it comes to sending people to Guantanamo Bay, I need to learn a little bit more about that because I don't know exactly what's going into that stuff. But anyways, let's continue. But I'll just say this. The law is the law. We have a law of the land, but I don't want anyone to get like inhumane treatment, but if they gotta go, they gotta go.
Here's a quote. The law is not known to him who knoweth not the reason therefore. Why do we include some people but exclude others? Because that is the very essence of nationhood. What is property but a right to possess and enjoy to the exclusion of others? And what is a nation but that which belongs to its people? A right to exclude and regulate aliens is an inherent right reserved for peoples of any nation. Have you thought about the fact that after decades of the same conversation, you have not convinced a majority of the people to change the law in your favor? So maybe the law isn't wrong. Maybe there's something to this law you're not seeing. Maybe you're in the wrong. And at least in this instance, your blanket approval or endorsement of lawbreaking under the premise that the law is wrong reflects a selfishness on your part. Because if everyone had your attitude for whatever cause they held dear, we wouldn't have a society, or at least one anyone would want to live in. But as I've said, I still felt conflicted, even after my viewpoints have shifted. Because there's a principle of a matter on its face and that principle as applied to your life, where on its face you would not question its sacredness, you start seeing more of the downsides and the human aspect as applied. And here's the thing. For millions of Americans, we know illegal immigrants in our lives. Not just as acquaintances, but neighbors, friends, confidants, and family members. If you have illegal immigrants in your life, it's very hard to see them as an abstract problem that needs to be dealt with. You form a bond with people, and you witness firsthand and sympathize with their plight. I mean, these people are living life with constant weight on their shoulders. They're unable to seek justice or recourse when someone has wronged them because they're afraid of knocking on the door of the system. And when you see people who you know to be a good person suffer like that, can't help but feel something. That is what I think leads a lot of us to think, man, the law is in the wrong. And even if you know in principle that, as with everything in life, you make the bed you lie in, that illegal immigrants, at least as to the adults who made the conscious choice to break the law, you assume the risk that this shadow would cast in perpetuity on the stability of your life so long as you stay. Even if you know that on principle, I nevertheless can't help but think that I very well could have made the same choices were I to be in their circumstances. And when I say that, I mean they weren't left with a choice between immigrating legally versus illegally. Their choices were to immigrate illegally or not at all. Often, when someone who has been here for a long time is arrested by ICE, we hear, well, you've been here 20 years, why couldn't you have applied for a green card? Well, having a degree of familiarity with immigration law, I can tell you, there are certain avenues through which one can attain a green card, and if those avenues are foreclosed to you, for instance, because you don't have an immediate family member who can sponsor your petition, or you wouldn't be eligible for an H-1B, there's no legal means through which you can immigrate. And I was never in this circumstance, but if you feel like you have nothing else to lose because the country in which you were born is either dangerous or present no opportunities for upward mobility, I could see why they would make that choice to break the law.
I see that too. And that's where I'm getting at, because I've been hearing this a lot, and I'm going to be honest. I don't know how accurate this is. It's not something that I've ever, and this sounds very privileged and very ignorant, but this is not something that I've ever had to think about, if that makes sense. I've never had to think about someone who has to illegally cross the border. But now I'm diving into it because I want to learn more about it. Is that a perspective? And I'm asking this question genuinely. Will people have to break the law and cross the border? I don't know. It's not in my life. I'm an American citizen. I've never thought about this. What do y'all think? Do y'all think that some people have to do this? They have to illegally cross the border? They have to do that? What do y'all think?
Because here's a way better place to live. So yeah, simply saying, they should have done it legally is kind of a half-truth. But there's also a lot of other half-truths that are replete in this dialogue about immigration. Half-truths that confuse and mislead the jury, that is the American public. And sure, some of it weighs in favor of the illegal immigrant, like what I just mentioned. But there's also a lot of half-truths going the other way, and those merit discussion as well. Here's one. They say illegal immigrants pay taxes. And here's the thing. If you are a undocumented immigrant, that is to say, you do not have legal status, but you are in some way accounted for by the government, sure, you pay taxes. So that be, for instance, DACA recipients, out-of-status TPS beneficiaries, or you faced a removal proceeding and your removal was withheld by the judge, also known as withholding a removal, or you circumvent U.S. labor laws barring unauthorized work by creating an LLC, working under the designation of an independent contractor by getting an ITIN number issued. In all these instances, the illegal immigrant pays taxes. But these limited category of people do so because, like the rest of us, they have to. They're accounted for by the government. They're in the system. The government will come after them if they do not. But this represents but a small fraction of the illegal immigrant population. Okay? The overwhelming vast majority, the rest, do not pay taxes. None I've ever known throughout the course of my life did. Vast majority don't have a social, nor an ITIN number. Many don't have a bank account. They earn cash and spend cash, and none of it goes to our collective pot. I can understand from their perspective why they would hesitate to reveal themselves to the system, But it's also not right as a matter of generalization to say that illegal immigrants pay taxes, okay? Because you're arguing the rule from the extremes. And that matters because it then colors the derivative inference that they are somehow more deserving of a grant of legal status. No. Here's another thing that advocates say that's a half-truth. They say immigrants commit, on a per capita basis, less crimes than their natural-born citizen counterpart.
I hear that too, and that's just, I mean, even here's my thing with that. Even if that's true, how do I say this? How do I say this in the most respectful way possible? Even if that's true, illegal immigrants shouldn't be committing any crimes because you're here illegally. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like if someone comes in your house and they come in your house and they don't take nothing, they don't break anything, they don't even do anything bad. They clean your house. You still don't want them in your house, but if they do something in your house, like steal your TV, now you really gonna have a problem. And that probably wasn't the best example because you don't want anyone in your house you don't know. But y'all get what I'm saying. Let's continue.
But this is a half-truth, not because it generalizes from the extremes, as in the last example, but rather because it sees not the forest for the trees, okay? The basic issue here is people have a problem with people coming into the country, then committing crimes, especially violent crimes. It signals that you don't have basic respect. So you can say immigrants commit less crimes than their natural-born citizens do, but I'll tell you why that's a bunch of nothing burger. Suppose that you are the head of a household, and some of your children keep dragging the mud in. It's a perpetual nuisance. And then suppose some uninvited guests enter your house, and they also drag the mud onto your carpet. And you're like, what are you doing? And how would you react if those people were like, well, your own children drag in more mud? Would you be like, oh, didn't think of that. Please, come in for dinner. We're having hot pot. No. You'd be like, excuse me? Yeah, my children do that. I have to deal with it because they're my children. You are not. You're new. I don't have to deal with you. Get out. That's how people feel when you say something like that. And finally, just one more thing on this topic of half-truths. People say America is an immigrant nation. True. I think America is a melting pot, and that is one of the things that makes it unique. But when you say that mantra to justify unchecked and illegal mass migration, that mantra then becomes one born from mindlessness. Because to say America is an immigrant nation to justify mass illegal migration is to commit arson at a barbecue joint, then declare, what is barbecue without fire? A fire is only as useful and beneficial insofar as it bends to the needs and the will of its handler.
I really like his perspective on this. I think he's being more than fair, and I like the fact that he addressed the concerns that come with illegal immigration that people are bringing up. Let me know what y'all think about this. This is a very controversial topic. I'll just say this. We have laws for a reason. We have laws, and I just like we should follow the laws. It's really that simple for me. But then again, I've never had to critically think about it. I think it's simple. We have laws. It's called illegal. It's in the title. Should we support illegal home ownership, illegal gun ownership, illegal car ownership, illegal, like, come on now. Anyways, let's continue. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.